Well, John, I want to welcome you to the show today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So let's start from sort of the middle beginning. Let's start with when you got out of college, and what's your journey been like? Did you always know that you want to be the top IT decision maker? Is that something that's always been an ambition of yours, or did that grow over time?
Great question. Coming right out of college, no, I actually had my sights really set on being the top geek. I wanted to be the guy that everybody else in my department came to, the one with that little bit of extra technical knowledge that the others didn't have. That was really early on, my ambition was there. What I found was in my quest to get to that point, two things. Number one, there are some technically brilliant people out there that I could not keep pace with, just to be completely honest, in terms of their dedication to certain technology stacks. But that they did come to me, but they were coming to me because I was comfortable sitting with the business leaders. I was
Um,
comfortable having conversations with people outside of the IT department, and they needed help in understanding why what they were doing applied to a project or a task or a goal. And it over time, it kind of materialized that being in that sort of a role and helping to lead the IT people that I was so close with through some of those processes and challenges was much more energizing to me. It was something that gave me a lot more joy and satisfaction in my day, and eventually caused me to kind of change the direction that I was looking at and give that consideration to moving to the other side of the desk.
so it started out very technical geek on the team, and then you were asked to basically translate into business speak for
Right.
the business leaders, and that energized you even more than being the chief tech guy.
It did because it was something that I could give
Yeah.
to the team, something that I could do to help them that didn't come as easily to some of the other members of the team. It was, a role that I could fill that helped the team as a whole and be more successful.
So did you have a series of jobs that were sort of higher and higher sort of ranking within IT to get to the point you're at now, or was it a relatively quick ascendance?
It was fairly quick, but it was definitely stair steps. I went from an entry level support position to a senior support position to an infrastructure position to a senior infrastructure position. And at that point, I found myself spending a lot more time managing projects and vendors than I was doing the actual hands on work. And I made that next step then to my first management position after being in a senior infrastructure position.
Oh, I see. Okay. So has there been a particular theme that you think that has been sort of your superpower throughout uh, within the skill set? If there's like 10 skill sets that you need to be the top guy that you think in an IT organization, has there been one or two that you think of that you uniquely have that you it's been your calling card throughout your
Sure.
journey to be the top?
One of the things I've always told folks, and I get told this a lot as well, is that my superpower is time management. I'm one of those annoying people who's always early. My idea is early is on time is late, and late is unacceptable. And I try really desperately to hold on to that. One of the things I've been writing about here recently is, little clips on time management and the things that I do day in and day out because people have asked me, why are you always early? It's annoying, but it turns out to also be a very beneficial skill to have. So that's my number one. That serves me well both in the office and out of the office. Another one I
How
have.
did you develop that? Was that something that you natively had? Did you learn it from your father or mother or grandfather, or did you go to was it military? Like, well, how did you learn that?
That definitely came from both sides of my family. They just across the board, my mother's side and her parents, my father's side and his parents, all were very meticulous with their time and with their organization of not only stuff, but of how they were spending their time and their effort and their energy to make sure that it was always something that was beneficial, whether it was relaxing beneficial or productive beneficial. It was always very manicured and meticulously maintained, and I got that for better or for worse.
Wow. And I stopped you for a moment because you were onto something else. But I want to come back to time management in a minute. But why don't you continue on with what you were just saying after time management?
The next piece I was going to give was actually then the communication piece. Clearly, I'm somebody who has no problem talking with others, and that I learned once I got out of college and into the professional world is not a super common trait among the IT folks. There's a stereotype for a reason of the introverted IT person. So being able to step outside of that role as well, being able to speak with them and relate to them, but then having no problem, striking up the conversations and the chatter and being part of that smaller subset of the technical world that is comfortable with that, I think is something else that has served me really well.
Now, when you with communication, are you stronger verbally versus like in written format, or what for you? How do you qualify communication?
I really love both.
Okay.
One of my side projects that I've wanted to work on for a long time has been going beyond short form writing and online and things like that to actual published writings and book writing. Several ideas that I've got going on the side, but then I'm also really interested in the speaking aspects of it, and both informal, just in one-on-one conversations, and in larger forums of being able to get in front of others and speak and talk and share ideas. So both are equally comfortable to me and areas that I really enjoy being part of.
Because you've been doing quite a bit of writing on LinkedIn, have a pretty solid following base. Is that following base built organically through your writing, you think, or what do you attribute that to?
It's been completely organic. I have connections with people that I've either worked with in real life or who have interacted with content and things that I've written out there. I haven't gone out and actively sought after to inflate any of the numbers. It's just been people who have found interest in what I've put out there, interacted with me, and decided that, hey, maybe I'd like to see what your next thing is.
Because I've noticed even some of your recent posts on time management, that would be interesting. We'll put some links to that in the post afterwards, so that people can take a few minutes to look at your time management tips. Maybe that's I think that's an interesting one though, because someone like yourself that's sort of natively kind of grown up with that capability and surround yourself. Some others may be looking to have better time management skills. And have you supplemented any sort of your natural DNA to leaning into time management with any books or courses or mentors related to that topic?
That's been critical. Nobody knows it all coming out of the gates. Sure, you may have a really strong foundation, but there's always more that you can learn. I'd say a solid half of the business books that I have relate around project management, time management, those sort of skills in being able to properly schedule and account for things. So that's a huge resource. And then I've had several mentors through my career, and a couple that I have now that are also very much of the same vein. I'm finding that typically those more successful people have that sort of structure to their DNA. They know that their time is valuable. They respect other people's time and the value of that as well, and really work to ensure that it's a good win and good positive for everybody that's involved when the time is taken to undertake any task.
Now, related to mentors, is there any that are you referring to, like actual people or books as mentors, or a combination of both? Can you talk about that? And have you actively sourced mentors, or has it been more about serendipity of bumping into mentors?
Kind of starting from the last one and moving back, I have not been as good about actively going out and finding mentors who are where I want to be. That's something that's definitely been a shortfall in my personal growth. But I've been very fortunate in several of the roles that I've been in to have strong leaders who agreed with this idea of paying that forward. They've had this experience, they've gained that knowledge, and have been very open about paying it forward. I've also been fortunate that in one of my roles, the leader of that particular company was never officially a mentor, but he was one of those that when you sat in the room with him, you always learned something. When you watched how he ran the business or dealt with clients and customers, you were always learning. And not everybody has that sort of an
Yeah.
opportunity. I was very fortunate to have it. But then in terms of the books, there are so many brilliant writers out there that have so many good ideas. There's no way to ever get to them all, but just do your best. There's going to be underlying themes that you hear people talking about, authors that you hear people talking about. You're going to naturally gravitate to some that have a writing style that you enjoy. Go after that and take that time. Reading those books is an investment in yourself that everybody needs to be making.
Yeah, and I think people forget that mentors can come in many shapes and forms. It can be a boss for sure. It could also be a book that, it's funny, 30, 20, 30, 40 years of wisdom that someone takes to actually condense those thoughts into a structured book. You're essentially getting a window into their thought patterns. Even if you just read 2 or 3 chapters of it, it's 2 or 3 chapters that you didn't have for reinforcement. So that's important. And even in the innovation series, the mastermind that we have, putting high-level people together, there might be ideas that you're learning from other like-minded folks in that. That's why it's super important, I think, within group structures to make sure that if there's something you're looking to get out of it, is it truly a peer, which technically you're not going to achieve much more beyond your peers unless you're actually with peers that are further down the road and have accomplished some things. So it's interesting to look at mentorship. I think it's a big deal in the CIO community. What do you think about mentorship moving forward?
It's critical, and it's something that I'm definitely trying to be better at myself in terms of being mentors to those on my teams and to those that I interact with. Being able to share what you've learned and lift other people up and help them in their pursuits of whatever their goals may be is something that I think we should all be trying to achieve. And I said to someone recently that you want to pick a leader who can become a mentor, because a good mentor, their goal is for you to someday become their peer. And that sort of a path, and having somebody who can help you on that path, it helps you know that you're not doing it alone. Somebody else has been there and done that, and it's going to help kind of guide you through it so you can then turn around and give that knowledge to the next person.
Yeah, because I think one of the critical skills for the CIO really is the ability to see around corners. And the profession really was, the business handed them a project, and here's a statement of work. The CIO provided the statement of work, metaphorically speaking. This is what we need to do to get it done, but it had a beginning and an end. And now they're being asked to reinvent the future.
Yes.
And which is by definition a horizon that's always shifting, because the future is not static. So it's having mentors that have done that before and can mentor essentially the unknown, because it seems like the projects of the past, and even some today, have a very known endpoint. But when you get into projects that have an unknown quality to them, all of a sudden the mentorship, who's beside me that can help me.
Yes. And even when you get to those unknowns, the mentor's not going to have all the answers, but they're going to be somebody that's had to navigate unknowns in the past, and they can help you figure out what you need to do to be navigating that as well. It's a good mentor is never giving you answers. They're helping you find the answers, a skill that I'm working on as well. But I think that's one of the keys is helping you find that path and giving you the breadcrumbs that you need to get from point A to point B, instead of just picking you up and setting you down at point B.
Yeah. Some of my best mentors have asked great questions. I actually have a book over in the corner that had, it's like almost having the point to ask great questions seems to be one of the most powerful skills, and not have all, the answers. I don't know if you think that that might be one of the limiting factors sometimes within the profession, is that CIOs are expected to know all the answers because they're supposed to be technically the smartest person in the room. But what happens if you don't know all the answers?
There's definitely been that expectation for technical leaders. Because we're in a niche that typically business leaders feel, unless you're in a technical business, it's something that's a bit of a foreign language to them. So for a long time, there was that expectation of, well, you're the IT guy. Do you not have the answer? And now, as CIOs, CTOs, whatever title you want to put to it, have started to become more accepted at that leadership table and in the boardroom. They're starting to understand across the entire executive suite, oh, well, you're one of us. You're trying to take the information that you have available and make the best decisions possible, as opposed to just always having the answer.
Yeah, I love that. Now, one of the questions I had for you was about, to look at my notes, was kind of, do you do an 80-20 analysis? Do you spend Sunday in preparation for your week or Friday in preparation for your following week, looking at what's the 20% of my time that gets me 80% of my results? Is that kind of thinking go into your mind as far as how you allocate your time resources?
It has to, so it most definitely does. Yeah, I don't always sit down with pen and paper and write it out with any specific level of detail, but all of us have more people asking for our time than we have time available, and then the new projects, the existing projects, the follow-up work that needs to be done. Yes, you've got to take that time and look at what you have coming down the road. It's every Sunday night. That's what I do. I sit down and I look at my schedule for the upcoming week, and I decide, okay, what things are ironclad? These have to get my full attention. Which ones are the nice to haves that I think could bring value now or somewhere down the road, versus which ones are things that simply are not going to be beneficial either for myself or for whoever might be the prospect at the time. I speak often to when we're bringing in new vendors, which in IT roles we're constantly evaluating new vendors and new service providers. Their time is just as valuable as mine, so I need to make sure that I'm being honest to them that I'm sorry, this week is not going to be a good time for me to give that to you because I've got this other bucket of things that really are going to provide the most value for my team and for my company right now, and it doesn't leave enough for some of the other activities.
Now, in regards to your team, one of the things you and I talked about was things that you're passionate about. You feel that fall into that superpower slash. It's a major thing that you spend a lot of time on, and you mentioned teamwork, team development, and that might also blend somewhat into our mentorship conversation we just had. But I'd love to get your thoughts on the importance of teamwork and what elements of teamwork do you try to foster and within your own organization.
So, watching a group of people come together to work on something and be successful is one of the most exciting aspects of my day-to-day job. I love bringing highly skilled people together. One of the things I always say is, to build a team, it's my job to hire really good people and then get out of their way. The key to that, though, is helping them to understand how their way aligns to departmental goals, and then how those departmental goals align to business strategy and business vision. Being able to connect all of those pieces is what drives the engagement of those great people that you bring in. And the more you drive that engagement, the more they want to continue to be successful, the more they continue to drive themselves to achieve more and do more and be better. And for me, then it becomes the role of making sure they have the tools that they need, making sure that that road is clear. I've often used the analogy of, my role is to be the bulldozer. I've got to make sure that the road is clear of obstacles so that they can come through then and just lay it down, doing the amazing work that they do. That is so important to the team building aspect and helping them to enjoy working together. And again, I love watching that happen.
When you say that the alignment of departmental, would is it clear? So within your organization, you're saying that do you want to make sure your team's aligned to the departmental uh, goal? So if finance has a project, then that they've asked IT to be a part of, or you've solicited this to be a part of. However that happened, you want to make sure departmentally they're aligned to that project, and then that finance project has a bigger impact on the organization overall. And then the obstacles you're referring to, are they kind of organizational? Well, let me start there. Is that what you mean by that?
It absolutely is. They've got to understand that they're not just being given a task to be given a task. You know, what they're being asked to do is for this project. In your example there, finance has asked us to do something. Okay, great. Well, we understand now why we're doing this, but what's the next step? And a lot of teams I find are not given what that next step is. They don't understand, well, why is finance doing this? And having someone who can sit down and say, well, finance is doing this because it then fits into this larger piece of the puzzle that then fits into this strategy that we're trying to do for sales, for development. All of those pieces have to be in place if you're going to drive the engagement and the success of your team. So yes, you were spot on with that.
So it's not sufficient just to say, here's the project, go get it done.
I tell my teams that if they were to work with me for a decade, they might hear twice, just do it because I said so, because that just can't be a part of a highly effective, highly efficient team. It's going to happen from time to time. There's going to be things that pop up that you just have to get it done, and you don't have time to go down the full touchy-feely visionary rabbit holes of it. But on the whole, if you want to have successful, driven, energized teams, they need that whole picture.
So it's really explaining the why.
Yes, okay. You hit on it exactly. There's several authors out there right now that have built entire careers around this concept of finding a why, going after the why, defining the why of what you do, because the why is what gives people purpose, and purpose is what gives people energy and drive to continue what they're doing.
One of the big themes that the business strategists that I've been following recently, Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy, just released a book, and I'm a part of his entrepreneur group. And one of the big themes is who, not how. So it basically, from a leadership, stop telling people how to do things, just find the right who. Then the right who will tell you how to do it. And I'm curious, we haven't talked about this prior, but how do you make sure that you have the right who's on your team?
Wow, that's a really good question, and that's tough.
And I guess that it's also vendors. It doesn't have to be within your four walls. The right who could be externally sourced as well.
You hit on kind of where I was going to go with that. That the who is going to be somebody somewhere is going to be passionate about the exact problem that you're trying to work on, whether it's a piece of the puzzle or the puzzle as a whole. There's going to be somebody out there that their why is working on exactly that.
Sure.
So it's then going out, and of course we're so fortunate now to have a wealth of resources, be them online and networking and peer groups and entrepreneur groups like you just mentioned. We're in a day and age where you've got those tools and resources now to go out and find that who that is passionate about that particular thing that you need to be working on.
It's funny, I really believe in the role of entrepreneurs, internal entrepreneurs. And I certainly, I don't believe it's necessarily fair or always appropriate to give a label of entrepreneur to someone working within a business. However, I think people have entrepreneurial tendencies. Some people do. They have entrepreneurial tendencies. Do you label yourself as in that vein? Have you ever thought about yourself in that frame?
I would definitely be much more of the intra than an entrepreneur. I've never been someone who saw himself as starting a business or leading a new business, but starting an idea or leading an idea internally is what I do every day. Yeah. And what I see a lot of my peers in IT leadership roles, they're very similar to that. You've got the folks that are going out and starting the companies, but then you've got a lot of us that really love being a part of that company and coming up with the new ideas internally.
Now, on your LinkedIn profile, which is really quite unique in the sense of how you've written out you have Disney fanatic on it, and I was curious, has your passion for Disney at all bled into your approach with team building or in your life? Obvious, separate from like family and kids and such, but has it bled at all the approach into your business?
It definitely has. I can tell you that sitting on my desk at home, I've got the Walt Disney saying, "If you dream it, you can do it." It's sitting there, and the things that they as a company have accomplished, and this idea of anything that you can imagine, you should be able to make happen, and just don't be afraid to go after it and put together the people who can do it. That was one of the things that Disney was very well known for, was finding the best people and then giving them the tools they needed to make the magic happen. And that carries over to most any leadership role. So definitely that it has influenced the energy and the passion behind, okay, yeah, we thought that we could do this, now let's go do it.
Yeah, it's that dreaming part, I think, is one of the first things to go when people get into the grind of just doing, quote unquote, just doing the job, and that dreaming capacity that we have to invent the future, which I think the role of the business IT leader now and into the future is going to be helping the business invent what's possible. Then you got to be able to tap that dream capacity, right?
It becomes very easy to get bogged down in the checking off the boxes of tasks that have to be done, and you've got to pull yourself out of that, and instead of looking at what has to be done, look at what could be done.
Well, Jon, I want to I appreciate you for spending time with me and in the larger community that's going to be watching this. Is there anything in particular that you were hoping to get in or triggered in your unconscious while we were talking that you wanted to end with?
Just that, for those of us that are in the IT world, I look at us as being helpers. And over the last, 6, 7, 8 months now, we've been in truly unique times, and something that is going to be very uniquely remembered in history. And it's been really a proud moment to watch my peers and other people in the IT industry be those behind the scenes helpers, to be that little slice of normal that people knew that they could come to in these very abnormal times. And I'm just very proud to be part of this industry and see where we're going to be able to go as we come out the other side of this.
Well, that's great. I appreciate for saying that at the very end, because sometimes that word helper is, as you mentioned, from a lot of the folks on my team and your team, they're really in this profession to help. And then sometimes you can lose that, like we can lose dreaming. We can lose the raw emotion feeling we get from actually helping someone solve a problem.
Very much so.
Well, Jon, thank you very much. I'm going to have links to people can find you on LinkedIn. I'm assuming that's a good place. Are you involved in Twitter or any other platforms?
I'm really not. LinkedIn is the best place to find me. So please, okay. Let's chat.
Yeah, I'll encourage people to reach out to you. Well, thank you. Well, thank you, Jon. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me.